So at this point in your After Effects project, you're going to need to export out your file. You need to put this in a format that is going to show me what you've done, as well as something that is going to be uploadable. Now, I've given you instructions on how this can be done, but I want to show you how to do this in case my instructions weren't crystal clear. So, first of all, you're going to start with your file. Make sure that you select whatever the composition is. It's going to either be swimming dog or it's going to be movement. It depends on how you imported those into your layer stack. So mine is named swimming dog, yours might be movement, but make sure that you have the composition itself selected and not the layer. Once you have that selected, you can do one of two things. Make sure you have this saved, of course. You can either go to Composition and select Add to Render Queue, or you can select Add to Adobe Media Encoder Queue. I'm going to show you what happens when we add this to the render queue. There you can see I've done this before because it comes up with the second output. And we have several settings. First of all, we do have our render settings, output, modules, and output to, and that's just going to tell you where you're going to send it to. So under render settings, if we select best settings, and we can use the frame rate of the composition, which is 30, and we select full, we're going to end up with a really large file. In fact, if I take this as a quarter size, which is going to reduce this down to 320 by 180, I am going to still get a large file. If I select my output module, I can change my format. I can do an AVI file, an AIFF file. It's a little more complicated. Nothing else on here except for QuickTime is actually going to give me a video. Everything else is going to be set out as single images in a sequence, which is not going to help us for anything we want to watch. So I'm going to stay with an AVI file because it's slightly more portable than the MOV file. Not everyone has QuickTime. So this gives me now my choices. When I render this, however, I'm going to find out that this is going to be a really large file. I'm going to say OK, and I'm going to do a render on this. And you can watch your render going, and you can see it's rendering very quickly. I do believe it's going to come up. Let me check my folder. There is my swimming dog AVI file. When I click on that, it is 35 megs. I did it at full size, and it came out to 555 megs. I cannot email those. I cannot put a file that size into our canvas. So instead of that, we are going to choose to take our same composition and add it to the Media Encoder queue. Now sit back and relax. Media Encoder takes a minute or so to open. It doesn't open immediately. It's a separate program, and we just have to give it a little bit of time. It'll be a few seconds, and then your file will appear in the render queue. What's really great about Media Encoder is that it gives you all of these multiple presets that you can choose from. Let me collapse some of this. And you have tons of things that you can output to. And as you have time and inclination, you can select and try exporting to any of these and see what the composition looks like, see how the quality changes, look for the ability to make different frame rates, and you will see that the different files will produce different sizes. What I've had a great success with is exporting out for devices, Android, and I have picked out using a phone and tablet as a widescreen, which is going to give me an 854 by 480 rendering of this at 29.95 frames per second. What's really nice about this is that the format is going to be the H.264, which is a fantastic compression ratio. So I'm going to select that and drag that and put that onto my file. I'm also going to go in and double click this, and I can see this is where it's going to end up, is in my finished project, lesson 01 finished, and I'm going to change the name on this so that it can be located. Otherwise I will have multiple files that have the same name, and my file name is going to be al1 underscore my initials, and of course it will autofill to the MP4 file. And I'm going to save that. And now when I select render, I will be able to watch in this window down here my output as soon as it becomes available. It's finished, so I'm going to double click to open it. I can now double click and play. And you'll notice we have a little bit of pixelation in there. The quality has gotten down a little bit, but if you'll notice the file size, notice that the file size, my file came out to be 1.17 megabytes. That's going to be very easy to upload into your assignments. Feel free to experiment and select other settings. Another one that works quite well is in TV broadcast. If you select the H.264 compression and find one of the widescreens, one of the smaller proportionally correct widescreens like NTSC-DV widescreen, which is going to give you a 720 by 480 ratio, you can try exporting that. You'll find that that's going to give you a slightly larger file, but the output is going to look a little bit better. Hold on for 1 second and let me pause it. I'm going to redo this as the NTSC-DV widescreen, and let me export that out, and it should go a little bit faster because it's using a little bit lower compression ratio. You'll get a slightly larger file on it, but the quality should be marginally better, and you should actually be able to see a little bit of difference in it. Okay, let me double click the file to open the location, and I will double click this file, and you can see it's a little bit cleaner in the water. There's not quite so much of a pixel on that. And oops, let me bring my file back up. You will see, however, that the file size is a little bit larger. It's 2.78 megabytes. So either one of these is actually going to download very easily, so you could save in either format, just depending on what you want to do. And again, like I said, feel free to experiment with some of the other settings to see what sizes and what quality you can find.